What's going on, guys? Now, welcome back to another episode of the German Bear Podcast, and today I want to talk about Dayo Odeyingbo, the second-year edge rusher with the Chicago Bears, after signing a big-time deal in the 2025 NFL free agency. And today we want to get into his All-22, dive deep into his 2025 tape, and talk about what we can expect in 2026, and if the motivated version of Dayo Odeyingbo is going to be better than 2025 or not. And today is a video I have been very excited about. I've been prepping this video for a while, talking about Dayo Odeyingbo. Today, I watched his entire 2025 season, every single snap except for the Las Vegas Raiders game. Why? Don't ask me. It was just falling that way, but either way, I watched, except for that game, every single snap on defense for his 2025 NFL season. And today we want to focus on his pass rush and talk about if the motivated Dayo Odeyingbo can take a year two jump for the Chicago Bears. No edge rushers were added in this year's offseason, really. They added some interior help with Neville Gallimore from the Indianapolis Colts. Of course, once again, another Colt signing to the Chicago Bears. But the edge rusher position was left dry this entire offseason, which really speaks to the volume or the value that the Chicago Bears put into Dayo Odeyingbo, taking a bigger jump in year two after even suffering a Achilles injury last season. So that means we kind of have to depend on him. We're not going to hate on the contract today. We're not going to hate on the player today. Today, I truly want to get into the All-22 and talk about how he did do actually in 2025, what to expect for 2026, and what is the future for Dayo Odeyingbo on the Chicago Bears. Like I said, we talked about this enough on the channel about the contract and that it was not really worth it. But at the end of the day, the Bears can't get out of this contract in 2026. We have him on the roster, so let's just see what he can add to this team and how bad it actually was, or if he was actually okay, because spoiler alert, I think the stats and how everybody perceived him was a little bit too harsh in my opinion, and there's still some things to like with Dayo Odeyingbo. And today we want to get into his pass rush tape, like I said, and look at what he's going to be able to provide in 2026, predicting what is going to happen next season. And with that being said, before we want to do that, let's jump into the injury details real quick. What happened last year, he tore his Achilles in week 9 against the Bengals, which was one of his more disruptive games of the year. And even though he had a quiet year on paper, there was a couple of games where he really showed out, but torn Achilles in week 9 is obviously a freak injury and not an easy one to come over. So it's going to be interesting how he bounces back from that injury, but he had enough time now, so he should definitely be ready for week 1, no doubt. So the good part is it actually happened mid-season and not late in the season, so he had enough time to recover from it, but still, torn Achilles, not always fun. And then in terms of the stats, this is obviously something that's very bad for Dayo Odeyingbo in 2025, where it's not going to put him into a great light here for his stats and for his performance. 346 snaps overall last season, 21 tackles, 19 stops on the year as a run defender, and then he had 1 sack only in 9 games, or in 8 games overall played, and 15 quarterback pressures. So obviously not great numbers right there. And then he had a 7.9% quarterback pressure percentage, which was pretty low. Under 10% was the last time in 2022 for him when he was on the Colts. He was always over 12% after that. So he dipped in that aspect of this game with the Bears. And then for PFF, their win rate, just winning against blockers, it kind of counts out pressures, because win percentage just talks about they actually won on the rep, but the quarterback got the ball out quick, or it was play action, or whatever it was. It actually talks about the wins. He had a 8.4% win percentage, which was also not incredible. But that's what we're here for, right? On this channel, we'll always look at the All-22. I studied his tape in depth, and today I'm here to talk about what he's going to add to the Chicago Bears in 2026 based on the tape, not on the stats. And with that being said, let's actually do this, all right? Let's get into this tape study and talk about Dayo Odeyingbo in today's film room. And like I said, today's film room is going to be all about the pass rush ability for Dayo Odeyingbo, and we're going to talk about the good and the bad for him. So let's get straight into it and talk about the good. Dayo Odeyingbo wins with power and the bull rush. He actually has a violent first pop and punch and good leg drive on his bull rushes, and he uses his long arms to out-extend linemen and drive them back into the quarterback's lap on tape, and that happens over and over and over again. If you want some really good tapes to study by yourself, go check out week 1 and week 9, the Vikings and the Bengals tape. It was against not that great of a competition, but it still gives you a good look of what he can do against some weaker competition. And then also the Saints game against some good young tackles, he displayed some good plays as well. And overall, like I said, bull rush is his bread and butter. He can win with power, and that's expected for a guy that's 6'6" and 280 pounds overall. He has that mass, but he plays with it as well, and he can be a true pocket collapser on tape. And he pairs that with a good long arm pass rush move as well, where he can fully use that length, out extend, and that mass to his advantage with good hand placement as well, which I truly liked. And like I said, he can be a true pocket collapser. He's been that guy on tape, and that's why he had so many pressures. I think 49 in 2025, 4 with the Indianapolis Colts as well, which was the highest number by far for him on paper, because he can truly collapse a pocket and put pressures on quarterbacks, which is, in my opinion, and I've talked about this extensively on the channel, much more important than quarterback sacks, because sacks can be such an influenced stat by so many ways. Pressures can truly impact a game as well, and I do think Dayo has that upside. He just needs another opportunity here with the Bears. And then if we're going away from the power and the bull rush aspect, where I really do like his hand placement, striking early and just punching back and just shocking the offensive lineman, we can talk also about his finesse pass rush. I don't think he's a very well-developed pass rusher in terms of finesse rushes and winning with a lot of different pass rush moves, but there is times where he does flash. For example, a solid two-hand swipe move where he's very precise, swipes away the arms of the tackle, and then just kind of somewhat bends around the edge, has active hands that constantly try to refit, and has some real good pass rush IQ at times as well. There's plays where he's setting up and then later utilizing the oversetting of the tackle to his upfield rush to counter that with an inside knife. So sometimes he rushes upfield, tries to threaten the offensive tackle's outside shoulder. The tackle is quick out of his breaks, oversets, and doesn't truly protect his inside. And when that happens, Dayo Odeyingbo used that to his advantage to get back inside and use that inside knife with a great swim move and explosiveness to that inside with that straight line speed. So I really liked his counter in terms of inside knives. He didn't do it a lot, but when he did it, it was really effective. So I hope he does a lot of more of that in 2026. And then when he kicked inside, obviously a bigger body, he can also rush from the inside on some third or second and longs. He kicked inside and showed some big power against guards to overwhelm them, and had some impressive wins and flashed a good spin move as well, even though I think only on the inside he should utilize that spin move. Outside, he just doesn't have that speed to threaten the tackle's outside shoulder and then to work that spin move off of that. But against interior offensive linemen, I think he did a great job utilizing that spin move and was pretty explosive in that sense. Also, pass rush wise, I love the motor of Dayo Odeyingbo, always giving 100% and just trying everything he can on the play, and is a solid explosive athlete for his size who has good straight line speed. Right, Dayo Odeyingbo times the snap really well. I think he's one of the best players on this Bears D-line, getting off the ball better than Montez Sweat. He can time the snap and get off explosively off the ball with a good first step. And then he has obviously a lot of size, and that long frame allows him to gain ground quickly with long strides. And then he can be really explosive, like I said, in a straight line speed. Is he very explosive east to west? No, he's not really a twitchy athlete, but straight line pretty good, and I do think that can be an efficient way for him to sometimes win on the outside shoulder. And then in terms of bad or room for improvement, I just think he still lacks a pass rush plan at times and just throws some wild swings at a offensive tackle. Now, Dayo Odeyingbo, a lot of people forget that, is still only 26 years old. He's still a young player, so there's still room to grow for him. He's not done developing, but still, I would have loved for him to improve in that area. And he did have some good pass rush plans, like I said, with setting up that inside knife. I love that, especially against Tyler Guyton of the Dallas Cowboys. He got him badly on that. but sometimes it was also just wild at times. So that needs to be just more consistent. Also, he does not have clean counters to his power yet at all times. His hand placement is usually solid, but not consistent enough, and he lacks explosiveness and twitch, especially against very quick tackles like Laramie Tunsil, or I talked about him just now, Tyler Guyton, the left tackle for the Dallas Cowboys. Now, is he a great player? No, but he can really move off the ball and protect his outside shoulder, and I think Dayo Odeyingbo just doesn't have that speed and twitch to threaten those outside tackle shoulders. Nonetheless, against Laramie Tunsil, nobody does that. He's so freaking good, man. That was a tough watch, but anybody that rushed against him struggled. So he's just an elite tackle. And then for Dayo Odeyingbo, lastly, I just think he also lacks the bend to finish plays, and his lack of low ankle flexibility also pops up his pad level at times with his bull rush, and the lack of bend just speaks for he has that straight line speed. He can sometimes threaten that tackle's shoulders if it's not an elite speed tackle that can really move off the ball and has quick shuffles. But at the end of the day, he doesn't have the bend to truly finish. So sometimes he can really get around the edge by just pressing the tackle back inside and winning on that shoulder. But he's not going to be a guy that's going to bend and flex with his ankles around that corner. That's just not his style of play. But that's not bad because he can win with power. He just needs to focus on that more in 2026 and really rely on that because he has a lot of it. So with that being said, that leads us to the conclusion of today's episode, talking about Dayo Odeyingbo as a player. And I have to say, overall, it's not as bad as people make it to be. Is he worth the money, especially in 2026, where he's going to have a cap hit of $20.5 million because the Chicago Bears backloaded that contract? His cap hit last year was only $8 million. Now it's going to be $20 million, or a little over $20 million. No, he's of course not worth that money, but is the contract signed? Yes. So we can only look forward and hope he does well, because honestly, I liked a lot of what he showed on tape in 2025, and he just did not get lucky at times with getting a sack in certain situations. Is he a 8-sack guy overall? Will he be a guy like that in 2026? Probably not, but I can certainly see 6 to 7 sacks in 2026 with a good amount of pressures, which is more important anyways overall, like I said. And I think then we can be very happy with Dayo Odeyingbo in 2026 improving. We still have to consider he only played 8 games for the Bears last year, and he was trending up with the couple of last games he played before he was injured. His week 1 performance was really good. And sometimes I really also think he was not put in great situations. Example, against the New Orleans Saints, if you watch that game, he was slid inside so many times where I was like, yes, he can be effective as an interior rusher, but I felt like he did some good stuff out on the edge as well. So I didn't get the usage that game, for example. And I know he's not an insane player, and he's definitely not worth the money. That's not the point of discussion here, but the contract is signed. We can bitch about it all we want with Ryan Poles signing him to a bad deal, but that's history now. The Bears can get out of this deal next year as well. This is probably his last year with the Bears if he doesn't improve drastically. And at the end of the day, Dayo Odeyingbo, we all want him to be good, so let's embrace it. Let's embrace what we saw in 2025, actually, and not just focus on the raw stats, which were not good, but like I said, the tape actually shows he has bull rush power. He has the ability to collapse a pocket. He just needs a little bit of support, and I think with another offseason in the system, understanding what Dennis Allen tries to do, I think he could be a pretty solid player for the Chicago Bears moving forward. Like I said, worth the money? No, but I think overall he can be a 6 to 7 sack guy that gets a good amount of pressures and just be that third or maybe second edge rusher with Austin Booker. Like I said, I'm not too high on Montez Sweat anymore. I don't think he has a lot to offer as a pass rusher. The stats don't really paint the full picture at all with him. It's the opposite, like with Dayo Odeyingbo here. And I do think he can be a good rotational piece for the Chicago Bears moving forward. And he's going to help coming back, right? His run defense is solid. Does he sometimes fail to disengage in the run game? Yes. But I think he can be a really solid player overall for the Bears. And I actually liked what I saw in 2025. Was it outstanding? No, like I said, but still, I am hopeful that he can return to a better version of himself in 2026. And you guys should be a little bit more excited for Dayo Odeyingbo. And we all know if he's motivated, nothing can stop him. And with that being said, guys, that's the end of today's episode. I really hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments down below, what do you think of Dayo Odeyingbo's tape in 2025? Forget about the stats, forget about the money for a second. Let's just talk about what we saw on tape in 2025 in today's film room study. Also, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It's completely free, but it helps me making these videos for you guys and building this awesome community with you, so I would really appreciate it. And I see you guys very soon again with another video, of course, about the Chicago Bears. And until then, and as always, bear down.